Greetings from Flight Quest. Welcome to my home simulator, X-Plane 12. My question is, what are forward slips? And why do we do forward slips? And can we do forward slips with full flaps? This Cessna 152 has 30 degrees flaps. I just happened to come across it in my X-Plane. So we're going to take off on runway 24. There's no traffic in the area. Tower's already cleared us for a takeoff. We got plenty of time. I do have a view of my rudder pedals down here. I don't know how X-Plane 12 is going to react with a forward slip cross control. I don't know how much rudder deflection I'm going to actually have when I'm doing it. So you're seeing this for the first time. I've never done a forward slip in X-Plane in any airplane. So here we are, first time. I doubt we're going to see a sudden pitch down. I don't know if we're going to see oscillations. I don't know if I'll have enough rudder control to really do a forward slip effectively in this simulator. So again, what we're looking at is, as the airplane's yaw during the slip, the tail moves out of the flow of the strong wind wing. You know, strong wind, that doesn't really come. How can I say that? Strong from the out of the flow of the wind. And of course, you know, with the flaps increasing the camber of the wing, it might sound that it blankets the elevator, but I don't think that's true at all. Oh, we're going to see here. All right, we're cleared for takeoff. Let me get some lights on.
You wouldn't settle for Bateman when there's Batman?
Solve the riddle and be free.
What is dusk?
You don't have to answer in the form of a question.
What is lasagna?
Sorry about that. Movie wanted to start up there in there. All right, runway 24, as Ada said, here we are. All right, we're going to climb up to traffic pattern altitude. I'm going to hold altitude. We're going to turn on final at pattern altitude, and then we're going to reduce the power, reduce the airspeed, increase the flaps to 30, and forward slip down to a landing. Oh, I just love that sound. Single engine, 100 horsepower. Maybe 110. It's got a little quirky control to it. Let me get this settled down. I got a little bit of a right, a left crosswind. There's 50. Let's get this thing airborne. Kind of a soft field takeoff. Goes down. Let's let the airspeed increase. Oops, sorry folks, I hit the ground. I don't have my rudder pedals calibrated to this thing. Alright, let's pick up in here. to do a forward slip with minimum flap settings, obviously we'll have better rudder control. And we know that the cause of the pitching motion is the transition of the strong wing downwash over the tail in straight and level flight, which helps to keep the nose up. It's all built in. And then it's lessened. The downwash angle over part of it is, when we reduce the power, then of course we have less tail down force that lets the nose fall through. So I'm probably gonna come up to about 2,000 here. Let's do a right turn to the downwind leg. No need to report Woodwood Tower. And we're gonna maintain 2,000. Relax on the down pressure as I'm in my turn. And off to the right is our runway. At this point, I'm going to bring my power down to about 2,000 RPM. Still in the green arc, carburetor heat not needed. And I'm going to trim, if I can see my trim. And I'm going to wait to kind of like beat my touchdown point. But we're going to go out a little bit further to give us a little bit of time. Let me just get set up with hands off flight here. Now, it got me thinking about the influences on the elevator from the downwash. We know when we extend the flaps, the center of pressure moves rearward. Something about the older 172s, they had a shorter dorsal fin, vertical stabilizer, vertical. It wasn't until like 1970 or 72 that they increased the size of the vertical stab and the elevator a little bit. And that is about the time that we started seeing that forward slips with full flaps went from prohibited to not advised. I feel like I'm back in my student pilot days right now. So this phenomenon was hard to like predict when it would happen or how it would happen or why it would happen because of the different configurations. And plus, when we look at density altitude, higher altitudes where the air is thinner and where we need a higher airspeed, where airspeeds, stall speeds increase and so forth, that all have effect of stall speeds and controllability and so forth. So it was always trained and taught that the pilot should be aware of the changes with tail down force, especially in a forward slip, and how reconfiguring the airplane can contribute to having oscillation moments with the airplane during low speeds, cross control, forward slip. And the airport is off to about our 45 degrees off our nose. I'm getting ready to turn in to the runway. I think to a further clarification, now we're going to turn final. The one thing that I always thought was kind of missing is that when we have the wing down, And when we have the rudder, opposite rudder, brought in, that wing down aileron goes up. So there is an upward deflection of airflow, which I'm sure, as you now we see we're coming up here, we're about 2,000 feet. Very high, white over white, we're not all right, or white over white, we're too high, whatever the saying is. So, in other words, the extreme slip conditions, like that we're experiencing in a forward slip, we have this pitch down moment that might occur with flaps down, slips in the Cessna. It's not because of a blanking of the elevator. You know, elevator blanking is what I think the term was that I heard. It blanks out the elevator because the angle of the wind hitting it is not hitting it directly, so therefore it's blanketing, it's going over it. But that simply isn't the cause. So the cause for the pitching motion, from what I've learned in one of my studies, and talking with a Cessna test pilot in there, is that the cause of the pitching moment is a transition of a strong wind downwash over the tail in straight flight to a lessened downwash angle over part of the horizontal tail, caused by the influence of a relative upwash increment from the upturned aileron in slipping flight. That was an incredible statement. So let's go ahead and start this flight. We're going to bring my power down. Now we're going to idle. Let's go ahead and bring the carburetor heat on. Allowing the airplane to slow down, maintaining altitude. Little nose up trim. I'm in the white arc. I'm going to put some flaps in. We have a crosswind to the left, so I'm going to have a wing down on the left-hand side and a right nose yawing. We have the runway. Let me show you the runway down there. You can see it. Okay. So I'm bringing the nose up. Let's go 20 degrees flaps. We may be way too high to even make the field here in the beginning parts of it, but we're going to see. I don't know what X-plane this is. We're going to start this forward flap. You can see my feet down here. So I'm going to bank into the wind, and I'm pushing on the right rudder, going into that forward slip. You see my nose going over, increasing my back pressure. I am now full rudder deflected. Power is all the way out. Carburetor heat is all the way on. I don't know if X-Blade can get us down. Let's see. I'm full flaps. But we may have to do this again. But you can see I'm fully deflected on my right rudder. And I'm using my longitudinal axis now to control the direction of flight. Right about there, I start losing the effectiveness of the rudder. And we are at 50 knots. Sometimes if I let the rudder out, push the rudder in, take some of that aileron out, the nose wants to sweep, but I have very little rudder effectiveness now to get the airplane yawed to the right so that I can bring in my angle of bank to do this forward slip properly. It won't quite let me get there. But you can see we are coming down at a very high rate of descent. Even though we're not lined up with the runway, we're working on that. I'm working on the cross-controlled situation. But I can see how that up aileron could change the angle of the downwash that might cause a deflection of the airflow that we minimally have, which would disrupt tail down force. And if we disrupt tail down force by lessening it, that's where that nose down pitch might come in. So how would we do that? We would go right back to coordinated flight to get that effectiveness back. I'm slowly making my way back to center line. I am got full right rudder deflection and trying to get this airplane to turn a little bit more. coming down. Hey, if we have to land on the grass, if this were an emergency situation, I would have no problem doing that. But you can see left wing down, right rudder. I'm going to put us over the runway now. This is quite a long runway, so we have it made. If this were an emergency situation, if I were running out of runway at this point, in a real word, if I were here, I must say, there we go, nose goes right, wing comes down, side of the fuselage is increasing drag. That rate of descent just increased right down to about 1,000 foot, and here we come down in here, and let's say we have the runway made now, no power. I'm going to get myself straightened out. It's not perfect, but you know, that's a forward slip. Now you notice I'm loose. I've run out of back pressure. And there we go. That was fun. And you see, full flaps, came to a full stop, plenty of runway in there. So, in other words, I guess with the extreme slip conditions like that, the aileron deflected on the downward wing. This is the most important point that I had come across in my training, that one of the reasons for the pitch down oscillation is not because of the elevator being blanked out, you know, elevator blanking. It's about the downwing of aileron deflecting its downwash, changing the angle of downwash on the elevator, that at a certain point in certain configurations that would upset the tail down force to a lesser value, and therefore the nose would go down. But we do notice that we're changing our aileron deflection constantly through there, so that could be part of what the oscillations are, you know, as the airplane's trying to regain a nose down, and then it goes nose up, nose down. These small oscillations indicate that, you know, you're right on the brink of something. At low altitude, it might not be habit forming, but if I do that with full flaps and I understand that, I'm also going to pay attention to not only my rudder control. If I am totally maxed out on my rudder, which I have been in, I know that I have room to take some of that cross control out. I know I have some room for the power if I have the room for a landing. Again, we're going to use the forward slip for an emergency landing or a way to lose altitude quickly so that we could salvage a landing, so we don't have to go around. We can do the forward slip, you know, momentarily on our descent to a landing. We don't have to use it all the way down. It may be something we start at the beginning of our approach, or it may be something we start at the end of our approach, or the middle of the approach, you know, just to get ourselves so that we are at the proper altitude and the proper configuration for landing, whichever airplane that we're in, you know, with the Cessna airplane. So it makes a lot of sense. The elevator blanking, it makes it sound as though the elevators lose effectiveness, and that's not what's happening really, truly. They are still effective. You don't lose effectiveness. There is still some there, but momentarily that deflection of that upward wind, that downward wing and upward aileron deflection into the relative wind changes the that downwash going to the elevator, which it's kind of like the relative wind changing direction, where we could exceed the critical angle of attack sometimes, even though we're holding the same attitude. Change the deflection of the wind, all of a sudden we've exceeded the critical angle of attack. It might be the same thing with the up aileron. Changes the angle at which the elevator is receiving its tail down force enough to cause the airplane to pitch down. So when people say, oh, the elevator's blanketed out completely, that to me, that's not true. So I would totally disagree with a lot of that stuff. So, you know, I mean, there's caution to be used with it. There's not much caution, I think, needed against slips with flaps in a newer 172s, but your older 172s, possibly. So I think like around 1972 or something, they changed the empennage. So the older versions of it, you did see the word prohibited. There later, probably we saw something else. You know, slips with more than 30 degrees flaps are not advised, and at that point. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you enjoyed that little quick flight, and I'll see you for my next video. I'm going to do, I believe, part number 3 for my custom-made DME arc. Again, my name's Steve. This is Flight Quest. I hope you enjoyed the video on forward slips with forward flaps. Are we dead? Did we crash? No. So, just some food for thought in a nostalgic Cessna 152 in X-plane airplane. Thank you very much for coming aboard, and we'll see you very shortly. So, thumbs up if you like this content. Hit my subscribe button. Kind of help me propel along. I got a lot more to come here in the future, so I kind of get my brain and my mouth back engaged with this type of flying. I know it's mostly about instruments, flying DME arcs or VOR approaches or basic attitude instrument flying, but every now and then I like to get in and do some VFR kind of private pilot or commercial based training maneuvers, kind of just to keep myself in check also. So I hope that all made sense. If it doesn't, I sincerely apologize. So have a great day, and look forward to my next video, hopefully along for this weekend.